Hi and welcome to Geek Club. In this short video we're going to talk through a type of verbal reasoning question known as code words. Here's what a question might look like. At the top you're given the alphabet and the question goes like this. If the code for toys is UPZT, then what is the code for lick? Okay, and there are 3 steps to answering this question. The first is we need to write the example code word, which is UPZT, below the example real word, like this. So I'm going to write toys. Notice I'm leaving a gap between each letter. And then underneath it, I'm going to write the code word. And I'm going to be careful to make sure that each letter of the words line up. The next step is for each letter pair, for each pair of letters between the real and code words, I'm going to identify how many places have been moved. So how many places do you move to get from T to U? How many places do you move to get from O to P? And you do that for all the letters. So to go from T to U, and you can refer back to your alphabet to help you, but you move forward 1 space. So I'm going to write that as forward plus 1 space. To go from O to P, again you move forward 1 space, 1 space forward from Y to Z, and 1 space forward from S to T. Now we've identified this pattern, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, we're going to move on to the third step. And the third step is to write down your test real word, which is lick. So I'll write that down. And now apply the same pattern to find out your code word. So I'm going to use this pattern here over here. So I'll draw my arrows and write down the same pattern, which is 4 lots of plus 1. And then I can look back at my alphabet to help me. So to move forward 1 step from L, the answer would be M. To go from I plus forward 1 means we get J. Forward 1 from C would be D, and forward 1 from K would be L. And so we've got our answer. It's M, J, D, L. For code word questions, you aren't always given a real word to turn into a code word. Sometimes it's the other way around. You're given a code word and you need to decode it to find out the real word. And this is an example. So here the question says, if the code word for GORP is IDYS, then what does GGIH mean? We can use a similar process to the previous question. Again, we'll write down the code word below the example real word. So the real word that we're given as an example is GORP. And the code word for that is IDYS. Okay, and again, we're going to try and identify the pattern of the number of places moved between each word, between the real word and the code word. But I'm going to do it slightly differently this time. Because now we want to go from a code word to a real word, instead of drawing the arrows downwards, I'm going to go up from the code word to the real word. So for each pair of letters, let's find out how many spaces we need to move to get from the code letter to the real letter. So to go from I to G, we have to move backwards 2 spaces. To go from D to A, we have to go backwards 3 spaces. So I'll write -3. To go from Y to W, it's backwards 2 spaces. And to go from P to S, from S to P, sorry, it's back 3 spaces. So now I've identified the pattern. I'm going to apply that pattern to the code word. So this time I'm going to write the code word, and I'm going to write it at the bottom, so it's in line with the other code word. GGIH. And this time I'm going to draw arrows up to show that I'm going from a code word to a real word, and I'll apply the same pattern, which is -2, -3, -2, -3. So let's go back 2 letters from G to get the first one. So back 2 letters from G would be E. Back 3 letters from G for the second one would take us to a D. We're then going back 2 letters from I, which is a G. And then finally, for the last letter, we're going to go back 3 letters from H. So 1, 2, 3 would be an E. So now we know that our real word for GGIH would be edge. There is a third format of code word questions. So we've looked at turning real words to code words and code words to real words by moving forward or backwards a certain number of spaces in the alphabet. But the third type is about reflections, and I think it's easiest if we go through an example. Let's look at this. If the code for soft is HLUG, then what does GZIG mean? The first thing to notice is that if you compare each letter of the real word to its code word, they're actually quite far apart in the alphabet. An S is over here, but an H is all the way over here. It's unlikely that you'll ever be asked to move more than a few spaces if you're going forward or backwards in a code word question. So if you notice that the real to code letter pairs are far apart, we're going to try decoding in a different way, and that's by reflection. Now you'll note that there are 26 letters in the alphabet. What we're going to do is draw a line halfway down the alphabet. So we're going to draw a line between M and N because they are the 13th and 14th letters, so that's halfway down. And for this type of question, the way you decode it is by looking at how far apart letters are from the middle. I'll show you what I mean. So for this, we only need to write down our test code word. So to decode the first letter, I'm going to see how far away it is from this middle line. So to get from the middle line to G, I need to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces. To decode a G then, I need to go in the opposite direction, the same number of spaces. So I'm going to go forwards from this line, 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the translation for the code letter G is a T. Let's do the same for the next letter. So Z is the last letter of the alphabet. So which letter is opposite the last letter of the alphabet? Well, that one's quite easy. It's going to be the first letter of the alphabet, A. The third code letter is I. So an I is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces back from the middle line. So to decode it, we need to go 5 spaces forward from the middle line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's an R. And the last letter is G. But we've already decoded a G because we did it for the first letter, and we know that a G becomes a T. So GZIG translates to tart. So that's how you approach code word questions. So remember, when you read a code word question, do check it and make a note of whether you need to encode a word. Do you need to turn a real word into a code word? Or do you need to decode a word? Do you need to go from a code word to a real word? Once you've done that, write the example code word below the example real word, and for each pair of letters, identify the number of places that you need to move in the required direction. You can then apply that pattern to your test word to encode or decode it. Finally, if you do notice that the letters between a code word and a real word are really far apart in the alphabet, try decoding by reflection. As usual, there are some practice questions on the website, so please head to www.geekclubkids.co.uk to download them.